Hey guys, welcome back to another video. So this one right here is going to be kind of like your TMZ type thing going on, because we got footage, well, not really footage, but I did go back and check the panels and see if the story lined up. And it's pretty interesting. So for those of you that are new here, what I like to do is talk about comics, of course, but pull up some of the stories that most people don't really talk about. And if I think it's dope, I just share it with y'all. And the question here is, did Sue Storm step out on Mr. Fantastic? And the reason that's even a question, because in the 2008 issue of Fantastic Four, she had made a confession to some things that took place many years back when the Fantastic Four made a trip to Wakanda. And at first you would think it's one of those secrets she would kind of take to the grave and not say nothing about. But on their 40th anniversary, Reed Richards bailed on her once again. And this wasn't like a first time thing. From the way it's depicted, he does it quite often. And in his defense, I gotta say this is Reed Richards. He's one of the most brilliant minds in Marvel Comics. So usually when he's needed, it's because nobody else can figure it out. But on the other hand, you have Susan, who needs to deal with that loneliness and frustration, so she decides to have a girls' night out. And it's a good way for her to clear her mind, hang out with the girls, and not think about how her husband left her high and dry on their 40th anniversary, because he's probably out discovering some other dimension with an imminent danger, posing a threat to all mankind or something like that. You know how he do. But while she's out with the girls, she gets a few drinks in the system, and she gets to telling this story that happened while the Fantastic Four had visited Wakanda back in '66. Alright, so I did the math, and you probably did the math too. So if this issue came out in 2008, and the Wakanda visit happened back in '66, which was also the first appearance of Black Panther, but the way those numbers line up, 40 years back from 2008 will be 1968, which is 2 years after the Wakanda visit. So you're like, okay, cool. They got married 2 years after they left Wakanda, so she was single back then, so if anything happened, it's cool, right? Wrong. Because Sue and Reed actually got married in Fantastic Four Annual Edition number 3, which was actually published October 1st, 1965. And so I'm just going to use a publication date in these issues because there's no other date back then in those issues that said it was anything besides the day that they came out. So I'm just going to go with that. So we're going to say they got married October 1st of 1965 and visited Wakanda in July of 1966. And so as she's telling her story, we get to see a bit of her thoughts, which we didn't see in the original version of the comic. Because in the original version of the comic, we saw more of Reed's thoughts and how he didn't want to get Sue all worked up and worried about this hovercraft that was a gift from Wakanda. So Reed just played it cool the whole way and act like he knew how it worked and all that. But Sue shares here her early thoughts about the Black Panther, saying that he sounds mysterious, powerful, and handsome. Not that she's even met him yet, she's just heavily intrigued about the idea of the guy. And not just that, but I think the hovercraft might have something to do with it too. And it's crazy, man, because I really can't make this up. But she says that once they get there and the Black Panther attacks the Fantastic Four, that it turns her on. But everything else on that initial encounter, it lines up with all that we know that happened when the Fantastic Four went to Wakanda. And Black Panther was really just testing them to see what they could do and if they were formidable, or as formidable as their name suggests. But each part that goes back to Sue Storm, she goes beat by beat. She tells them what it is. And she telling them what she told him, like, ooh, Black Panther, you so fast. You jumped all in my bubble. I couldn't even close it in time. And when she's telling her girlfriends this, they're like, okay, yeah, whatever. We heard all this before. But then she's like, all right, I'll fast forward to the good stuff. And so as the story goes, after the Fantastic Four passed their trials facing against Black Panther in the techno-organic jungle, he welcomed them in as his own guests, had the formal dance of friendship put on for them. He completely pulled out all the stops as far as hospitality. And they even all got together and played some baseball too, you know, just having a little fun. But I think out there when they was playing baseball that Reed Richards kind of noticed people looking at Sue Storm invisible booty. But at the same time, it was invisible, so who was really looking? And so later that night, she's talking to Reed, telling him how she's excited about being guests in Wakanda and hoping that they can extend their stay as a little vacation even. But Reed's not paying it no mind. He's too busy trying to hook up the electrobaitic system and connect it to the antibiotic. Yeah, so that last part ain't real. Don't Google that. Don't look that up. It ain't real. But not really, what he's doing is studying the vibranium that T'Challa has shared with him. Which makes sense that Reed Richards would study that till he passes out, because it's not even an element that's on the periodic table. So after Reed Richards fell asleep, face down in the microscope, Sue decides to wander off. And while she's taking a stroll through T'Challa's palace, she hears a piano playing, so she goes to check it out. And lo and behold, it's T'Challa playing on the keys, doom 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 doom, whatever you want. And she like, oh, that music sound great. What's that, Chris Brown and Meek Mill? And he's like, a woman who knows her music. But now seriously, she tells him how she can't get no sleep. So he says what he usually does is just take a stroll through Wakanda, through the jungle. Which is probably something she shouldn't do by herself, probably get eaten or something, so he go walking with her. And as she's admiring the landscape, he asks her, Susan Richards, have you ever seen anything that's beautiful? And it made her think back to a time when her and Reed had visited a distant planet that had a breathtaking landscape as well. Alright, so I'm gonna pause right here for a second and do a bit of explaining on T'Challa's side. So now, most of his serious love interests don't really come around till like the early 70s. Like Monica Lynn, who's engaged to for a little bit, and then Nakia, who tried to kill Monica Lynn because she was jealous. And she also got kicked out the door of Malaje for attempted murder, but that probably won't be in a Black Panther movie. Like, that'll more likely be on the Lifetime version of Black Panther. Although he did meet Storm at a younger age, estimated to be somewhere around in the 1950s. but they were both young and it never really developed into a relationship at that time. So they separated ways. She later joined the X-Men, he became Black Panther, and they didn't really see each other again until like the 80s. So as T'Challa and Sue make it through the jungle, he takes her to the Black Lagoon, and he explains to her how the water's kept warm through state-of-the-art Wakanda innovation. And he's like, hey, I'm finna take a dip. You care to join me? And Sue's like, hey, I didn't bring my bathing suit. So she ended up swimming in the other suit. And T'Challa's like, hey, I was gonna keep my clothes on, but since you in there, you know, like that, it'd be just rude for me to keep clothes on. So he follows Sue and all natural as well, jumping in that water like splash. And initially when he gets in the water, he stays under for a while because he wants to pop up and surprise her. And there's no need to worry about him because, you know, the Black Panther can go under for a long time. But after compliments and conversation and getting closer, he's asking Sue if she's married to Reed. And after a very brief delay, she's like, yes, we're married and happily so. And he's like, well, okay, but by the way you've been looking at me. And she's like, yeah. He's like, well, I thought perhaps. And he immediately pulls back because at this point they both flirted with the temptation and made each other aware that they're strongly attracted to one another. So it was definitely at that point where they needed to call it a night, because if it went any further they would have reached the point of no return. And T'Challa walked her back to the room where Reed was still up and he hadn't even noticed that Sue was gone. And when Sue walks in, she's surprised to see him awake because when she left she thought he was asleep. But like I mentioned, he didn't even notice she was gone. But Sue telling this story goes on to say that because of that midnight swim, T'Challa thought it would be better that the Fantastic Four leave sooner than later. That way it would prevent him and Sue from putting themselves in a similar predicament again. And so the future Sue Storm, who's telling the story after that night out, goes back home to her husband who's waiting up for her. And he's up apologizing, saying how he's not that romantic. I mean, he did bring her flowers and everything, but she stops him right there to tell him that she already knows he's not that kind of guy. She's well aware of what she signed up for, and she loves him just as he is for who he is. But that'll do it for this one, guys. So, yeah. Alright, so let me know what y'all think in the comments below. You feel like she was loyal? I mean, technically they ain't do nothing, but she did go skinny dipping with Black Panther. Cause when a Black Panther wants you, and Reed Richards can't do nothing for you. But now, don't forget to smash that like button, sound off in the comments below, and let me know your thoughts. And I'm eager to see what you guys think too, because a lot of retcons like these got swept under the rug, and y'all know me, I'm the type to pull it out from under the rug, wave it around, be like, hey, what y'all think about this? But y'all can holler at me down in the comments. Got links up so y'all can check out my other videos, and we'll do it again next time. Alright, later.